Morning, Desiree.
We are live now.
Morning, everyone. Hey. All right, welcome to the Recreation Committee meeting. It is Monday, February 1st, 8 a.m. And we're meeting virtually due to COVID-19 pandemic. The press and the public have been notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Do I hear a motion on the approval of the previous meeting's minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any corrections?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Moving on to citizens' comments. Ron, I don't believe we have any, do we?
We did not have any citizens' comments for this meeting via the online forum, and nobody emailed me to speak at the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. We do have that component to allow people to comment virtually or through Zoom. All right, moving on. Well, we did talk about the possibility of moving up the agenda because our attorney is here to do the surfing discussion first. However, we need Douglas here. So should we go ahead and just move on with the departmental report until Douglas gets here? Is that all right? Why don't we do that?
You can talk fast. You all should have a report in front of you, and I'll just skim some of the highlights. We're getting ready to gear up on our adult sports. We have softball, 3-on-3 basketball, 6v6 soccer, and of course our table tennis. Now, all of these, we will have some new guidelines and protocol due to COVID. So there will be certain things that they'll have to follow this year that we haven't had in the past to make sure that we're following all the guidelines that we should be following. Our youth basketball season ended Saturday. I'm happy to say we got through that with no problems. We did have protocols and staff worked really hard to make sure that we adhered to those. The parents, the spectators were cooperative. And, you know, we had limited those. And so everything went well. We're excited that we managed to get through that season well. Our youth baseball, people are registering now for our baseball. For some of you that may not know, when we open it up for island residents, we also open it up for Sullivan's Island residents, but they do have to pay a non-residence fee. But we do give them an opportunity to register right away. And then we open it up for non-residents. I have attached some of the protocols for baseball. Those aren't all of those, but it is in your packet and it tells you some of the things that we're going to try to do to have a safe baseball season and league this year as well. Programs and classes, there aren't a lot of changes. Our fitness classes are very popular. They're going well. A lot of them, we do have the Zoom opportunities for people to participate. And then some of their new classes are some that we brought back, our Little Lotus Yoga for little children. That's going well. Our pickleball lessons, we brought those back. And over 50 yoga, that's back with us and with Zoom opportunities. So in fact, most of, excuse me. In fact, most of our fitness classes, our participants are probably 50 and older. It's phenomenal, but we have a good participation on these classes. Carrie continues to work with DNR and Audubon Society and Clemson Extension to try to get some special interest classes going. We're working on the budget this year in attempts to get capability of live streaming, which we think with the COVID, it might be good that we could have some of those courses and live stream it. So we continue to work on that. Our special events probably is the one thing that has changed more than anything else in the rec center and has been the most challenging. But our teenagers, we had 25 last month. And I want to say, when people look at the picture, there's a perception that they are not social distancing, but they are. If we have 25 people, we have over 10 tables. They're more than 6 feet apart. Couples are allowed to sit together. And then a lot of our seniors do their shopping together or they hang out together and they sit together. There's no socialization. There's no gathering in the room. They come in, they sit, staff waits on them. We bring their beverage to them, and we bring their food to them. So even though sometimes the appearance is that they are not social distancing, they actually are. Our Front Beach Fest, which we have canceled already, but we're going to have a drive-in movie. The police department's working with us on that. And we had a little competition on Facebook as to the movie, and Sonic the Hedgehog won. So we'll be having that movie on March the 6th. Our yard sale, we're going to have that on April the 17th. Obviously, we'll cut down the vendors about half. We've talked about maybe having another yard sale for those folks that don't get in for this, because we typically have about 50 vendors. So we might do another one in the early fall or end of the summer. Easter egg hunt, we couldn't do that. So we once again teamed up with the fire and the police department, asked them for their assistance. So we're going to provide an opportunity where parents can sign up online for us to come by with the police or fire department with the Easter bunny, and we'll put a bag of Easter eggs and candy on the lawn, and we're making little signs so we can say you've been egged, just so that children can look out the window and see the Easter bunny. And so the police are going to take one side of the island, the fire will take the other, and of course we'll be divided into that too. But I think that'll be a fun thing for our island children, and thank you to Chief Cornett and his staff for working with us on that. In May, we always have music in the park, and which I think we can pull off this year. We can do the circles and have families to sit in those, similar to the way we did the Ghostly Tide Tales. But we also thought to make it a whole day, we would also have movie in the park. So we'd have music in the park over next to the picnic shelter for typically your older adults attend that. And then across on the multi-purpose field, we'll have movie in the park. So we'll have a day of activities for everyone. And of course, like I said, the grounds will be lined off for families to sit in specific circles or squares. Other than that, I did attach a fitness class calendar with the report, as well as a calendar of the rec building and other programs and classes that we have. And unless you have any questions, I know that was quick, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
And thank you. I'll just make a couple quick comments, and then if the other members of the committee want to add anything. As always, thank you for the pivoting that is going on. I'm sure that it is a lot, and you guys are coming up with great creative solutions, and love while we all will miss the egg hunt. This will be something special that kids can always remember as a positive when
Right.
the Easter bunny came to visit them at their houses. So that sounds like a great way to do that. And thank you to the police and fire departments for helping with that. And as far as baseball, I feel much more comfortable with baseball than I did with basketball because it's outside. So, but thank you for including the other precautions that you're taking around baseball.
Sure.
Those were my main thoughts. Any other comments from the rest of the committee?
No. A lot of activity. Looks good, Norma Jean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks safe.
Yes, yes.
Great. Okay. Let's, as we talked about, if I could hear a motion to reorder the agenda so that we can take up item C under old business first.
Yeah, also move for that, Susan.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Right. All in favor of reordering the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So discussion and consideration of proposed changes to ordinance 2020-16 to allow surfing instruction on the beach under limited conditions. First, we discussed this, it came up for second reading. The ordinance changes that we were looking at came up for second reading at our last city council meeting, which was just last week. And as you guys know, it got bounced back so that we could look at adding some safety requirements for instructors. I do want to correct something that came up in our conversation at the council meeting. I referred to Folly Beach, and we had been looking at Folly Beach when we first started this conversation, which was in 2018. At that time, to my knowledge, at that time, they were just doing surf camps. And so we, looked at that closely and how they were doing that. I thought they were still just doing surf camps, but evidently towards the end of 2019, they added the potential or added guidelines for surf instruction. So they actually have both. They have surf lessons as opposed to camp. So they have two different options for surfing instruction. One is camps, one is surf lessons, and they have a certain set of regulations for that. The surf camps that they do are franchise agreements. The surf lessons are not. And so they're more flexible to some degree, I guess, but they're also a little less connected to the city. So that does give us a guide, though, that can help us in adding in safety instruction. So otherwise, we've got a ordinance changes that we can look at. Are there any questions right now that we can address in open session from the other council members?
I just have a couple of wording questions, Susan, so I don't know if that's executive session or how you want to handle that.
I mean, I think we could probably talk about that right now, and then if we feel like we need to address it in executive session, we will.
Okay. Hey, Ryan, sorry, did you want to say something? Did I jump in?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Jimmy, just go ahead, Susan. I just have two
Sure.
really minor issues or questions, not issues. On the opening paragraph under 7-3-20, before it gets into the subsections, it says by obtaining permission from city council and a business license. What's the need for having a permission of city council?
So if I can address that, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
That is actually taken from the section of the Folly Beach ordinance that we wanted to adapt. It specifically requires permission from city council in addition to a business license, so that way there is a higher level of review than just the existence of the business that's required for the business license.
Okay.
That allows the requirement for the safety certification and any demonstrable objectives needing to be met before permission can be issued.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And then subsection B says one instructor attending each lesson must be lifeguard, CPR, and first aid certified. So I'm guessing again, I know I've looked at Follies too. So we're wanting all three pieces for an instructor. Is that right?
Correct. And again, that is perfectly in line with what Folly is requiring currently.
All right, thank you.
And it does look like, I believe from what I was seeing from Folly or from something that somebody else suggested that wrote in, that is American Red Cross may offer all of those pieces or offer that in surf instruction, although I'm not sure if we've had a chance to pin that down. So
American Red Cross Life Saving includes the CPR and the first aid. That's part of their certification course. So it isn't three different courses. It's all encompassed in one.
which makes sense, yeah. But I think there may even be some kind of surf instructor certification you could get, although I don't know if that's offered around here.
If I could piggyback on what Philip brought up.
Yes, please.
Because it says approval of city council. We're not going to have to go through. Is this going to be done administratively? I'd hate for us to have to meet every time to approve a business license on the beach.
Good point.
We can certainly make that adjustment as an amendment if that's where the committee wants to go. Part of the reason not only trying to mirror it to Folly Beach, which was referenced a couple of times earlier, is the successful model. When you look at the way that the city has handled city-sponsored events, they usually come before either the Public Safety Committee and the City Council. Recently, we've made the change to approve any small, unobtrusive events. But it may be that for the first year, council does want to have a level of control and the ability to either accept or reject. So that's really up to city council, you know, with your temperature and that level of comfort in approving these.
Well, if the purpose of it is just to make sure that they hold all the you know, criteria or whatever certifications, I don't think we need to have a, you know, a gathering of 9 of us to make sure that happened. I think that's something that can definitely be done administratively. So
Well,
unless there's another purpose for it. But right now, that's
Right.
all it sounds like. And unless you're trying to do, you know, more background checks or whatever, I don't think that's on, you know, on us, but it's
That's a good point, Ryan. And I'll just offer that I talked to Folly Beach's mayor and asked him a little bit about how it was going. It sounds like he does like the fact that it goes before their council, but they do review all those at the same time of the year. So they said it, they don't do it piecemeal. They agree on a certain number of instructors, and it does. I think one thing I want to see is some control over the number of instructors that we can set a limit, and that might be more helpful if city council is involved. But so it doesn't get out of control
So
in terms of the numbers. But
I don't see if you're going to approach it that way, then that sounds like somebody, I mean, like a number, but everybody has to have their business license in or their permits in at the same time. Everybody votes on it. If somebody wants to start up a surfing instruction in the middle of the year or
Mhm,
middle season,
right.
we'd have to meet again. So I mean, we can do it that way if you want. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open to more discussion on that, and it would be good for us maybe to get some direction from our attorney on that, I think.
Well, and Susan, I wonder, I've heard Norma Jean say this a couple of times. I mean, this is a trial year. You know, I would be comfortable with a city council review in this trial year and just kind of see how it goes. And then we can make adjustments later, but
Okay.
just an opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion that we can have? I mean, we do need to get some legal advice about how to best move forward and what we can and cannot do realistically. So
Right.
if there's nothing else for open session,
Desiree has her hand up.
Something.
yes.
Chair Smith, one of the items that is not currently included in the red line, but I would like the committee and the staff to consider and maybe expand upon is including some restrictions on the hours that these folks can provide surfing instruction. It was something that we considered as part of the RFP that went out a couple of years ago, just limiting the hours that they can provide instructions on lessons on the beach. I think that is it's helpful for the police department as enforcement because they know the hours that they need to be, you know, just having an extra pair of eyes down at the beach and making sure that things are happening as they're supposed to. So I would like for us to discuss that further and maybe consider either recommending that to the final red line to council.
Ryan, did you have a comment?
Yeah. If I see where you have, we have a limited number of hours that they can do surf instruction right now, but now you're looking for a time frame in which they have to do it. Is that correct?
Correct.
The problem I have with that is that everything's tidal and surfing changes throughout the year and depends on weather, depends on tides, depends on the wind and everything. So I mean, I think if you want to have different degrees of, let's say you have a new instructor or somebody who's very new to surfing, you need a little bit calmer waters. And right now between, 2 and 4, you have a strong, offshore or onshore wind and it's really rough. And that's the only time you can do it. And so I think it needs to be open just a little bit more because I think you're limited to yourself to an area where it could be dangerous or it could be, not good at all.
Thank you. I actually agree with that, and also think that if we impose time restrictions. On the flip side, then the police would then have to be enforcing people not doing it during those time restrictions. So in a way, it could, create some additional duties on police to be patrolling and making sure people weren't doing it when they weren't supposed to be doing it. So, Philip, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I'd love to just hear more from Desiree or the chief on that comment though, Susan.
Okay.
Well, the other reason that we thought about, considering a time limit is that during the summer, around, starting at noon, later in the day, it's when the beach gets really busy. And the code already has restrictions as to how far or how close surfers can be to swimmers and bathers. Mm-hmm. So the idea of limiting it to the morning is it's more likely or less likely that the beach is fuller and could be, I guess, farther away from crowds. Chief, do you want to speak to maybe the, facilitating enforcement with a time limit or without a time limit?
Certainly. So what I'm looking at on the red line says that it shall not exceed more than 2 hours, and that will be very difficult for our officers to enforce unless they see what time they showed up and they're out there and they're able to come back within 2 hours. There's a lot that's going to be missed with that. And as long as council understands that won't be easily enforced, that was the reason for the restriction on the times. I completely understand the title. It changes throughout the day. It would be, as far as enforcement, it's easier if we say it has to be done at this time. Obviously, if we go out and we see a class being taught after that time, then that's much easier to address than trying to determine if they've been there for 2 hours. And, we can't always take somebody who's out on the beach that says they've been here for 2 hours, because when you're standing out on the beach, as we all know, time can go really slow or super fast. And we might not really know how long they've been out there. And for us to testify in court, we need to be able to say that they got there at 9 o'clock and they were there at 12 o'clock. So we knew they were past their time. That was my only concern I saw with the red line of the ordinance for enforcement part, was just the 2 hour limit.
Hey, Chief, have you had any problem enforcing the 1 hour limit for photographers?
No, sir. We don't get any calls on it.
Okay, I'm just saying it's the same situation. I think that kind of falls in the same situation. You don't know if you walk out there and the photographer's out there, you don't know how long they've been out there unless you stay there and start clocking it from there. And I don't think I really think that's a non-issue.
But, and I'll just say, I think that, it's obviously, we're not expecting the police force to spend all of its time in determining how long surf instructors have been out there. But it will help, I think, from the perspective of when we see advertising or, the intent of this right now in this initial phase is not to allow camps. But if we see advertising for what looks like to be a 3 hour camp, we can address that immediately with the surf instructor. At this level of surf instruction, if they're meeting the requirements for safety and liability insurance, I think we will be dealing with some professional operations that will understand, and maybe that might be part of the reason for city council review, that they have a privilege that they can potentially lose later if we run into issues with them where we feel like they're working outside of the restriction rules or guidelines. So, Douglas, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think along the same lines as what's being said is when these standards were developed, we knew that a weakness would be enforceability because it was very specifically designed to be undetectable. And when something's undetectable, it's obviously very hard to enforce unless there's a problem. So I think kind of that's the way that we thought of it, is that if it's invisible, nobody knows it's happening, then it's probably not a problem. Susan said, if it's being advertised in a way, or if somebody's abusing it and we catch wind of it, that's really the only chance that we would have to enforce on it. But I think we thought the benefits of doing it that way outweighed the enforceability issues it brought.
Right. Thanks, Douglas. Yeah, a key piece of this is, of the restrictions, is essentially trying to make it as transparent or as invisible as possible. So there's not a feel of commercial activity, and that's why we're not allowing signs and anything like that as well. There's going to be no big table that's set up to say, you know, Big Sun Surf Camp or anything like that. So,
So do
All
we
right.
have, do we have to go into executive session for anything? I mean, do we have more legal advice that we need, or do we basically wrap everything up?
I mean, I would like to, there are some questions that I would like to ask our attorney. So I can make a motion that we go into executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will be leaving and going to our separate meeting link for executive session and then returning. I don't anticipate that we will be in for very long.
Okay.
So if for those, anybody else following us right now, thank you.